Hello team and welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be really interesting and very useful for people who are learning DevOps. So basically, one of the most important concept inside DevOps we have is Docker, which is going to help us to package our application so that we can run our application on any kind of platform, right? But when we package our application, the size of that package, which is also known as Docker image, could be very huge. Huge means like from 500 MB to 1 GB to 5 GB or something like that. So it is a part of like best practice that we need to make sure that the size of the Docker image is quite small. So how we can achieve that? There are different kind of approach that I'm going to explain today as well, using which you can reduce the Docker image size. For example, we can specify dependencies. Dependencies like we can specify production dependencies and development dependencies separate, so that while building Docker image, we could utilize only production dependencies at the time of production deployment. Secondly, we could use minimal size base images. Like instead of using Node.js latest version, we could utilize Node.js slim version or Alpine version, right? Also, we could use multi-stage Docker files so that at the end of packaging the application, we just have the actual application which we want to deploy, right? Other than that, we could also utilize some web servers like Nginx, which are very small in size and which could help us to run our application with a Docker image of very minimal size. So all these approach I'm going to show you today from scratch, and side by side we are going to compare so that we can understand in real time how exactly everything happens. Okay. So now, if you are new on the channel, make sure to subscribe. Also team, as you know, like batch 7 is about to start. So announcement of batch 7 and all the details about the syllabus will be given by today or tomorrow. So stay tuned. And yeah, for those who have already mentioned their details in waitlist, they'll be getting an extra discount. If you haven't put your details there, make sure to put your details so that if you are interested to enroll, you'll be getting an extra discount. Now, with that being said, let's get started. So team, now let us understand how we can reduce a Docker image from 1.5 GB to around 50 MB, which is almost 97% reduction, which is a huge thing. And yeah, this thing you can even add in your resume as a task that is going to help you a lot. Okay. So there are so many different approaches which we can follow to reduce the Docker image size, and I'm going to show you all the approaches. Okay, talking about the first thing that we should be doing that not many people know is like by modifying our dependencies. Now, you might be thinking how modifying dependencies is going to help us reduce the Docker image size. So generally, for example, the project that I'm going to use for demo today is this one, a portfolio website, and this is the package.json file. So in this dependency, we have not clearly defined which is production dependency, which is development environment dependency. So every time, even if I'm building the project or this Docker image for development environment or production environment, still I'm building all the dependencies. But what I suggest to do is like you separate the dev dependencies and you separate the prod dependencies, so that when you are building the application for development environment, you'll be downloading the dev plus prod dependencies. But when you are building the Docker image just for prod environment, you are just going to download the prod dependency. Okay, because here the size of dependency is going to be quite big, but here the size of the dependency downloaded is going to be very small. Okay, so this is the first change that we are going to modify. Second thing which is quite important and quite general that I believe almost all of you might be knowing is using smaller base images. Okay, smaller base images. Now the question is what base images we should be using, because there are so many different base images. For example, there are base images which are very small in size, Alpine, then we have Slim, then we have even distroless. So which one we should be using when? Okay, so the problem with distroless is that it does not have a package manager like apt yum. It does not have shell, so it is not very useful in most cases. But still there could be situations where for security reasons you need to use distroless Docker image as base image. But yeah, in most cases it cannot be used because it is a very minimal image. For comparison, if I explain you, like it is around it could be around 5 MB, it could be little bit more, or you can say it could be somewhere 8 MB. Okay, and it could be just 1 MB. Okay, this is just comparison I'm doing. So difference you can see. Okay,
Distro-less, again I'm saying there are situations there it could be used, but in our direct production application deployment it may not be very feasible. Okay, that means we have two options left, Alpine and left, Alpine and Slim, out of which Alpine is much better option because it's the smallest kind of base image that we could utilize. Okay, third thing third thing is multi-stage Docker file. Okay, now in multi-stage Docker file, basically what happens in there could be multiple stages. For example, in first stage, I am just building my application to get a application artifact. Okay. In second stage, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy the specific artifact inside the base image. Okay, so in second stage, we are going to just have the artifact and we are just going to run it. Difference that is coming here is that key in first stage, whatever other files that we are having along with artifact, we are not at all using that. That means ki only the artifact size will be utilized, and in this way, this is one of the best ways to reduce the Docker image size. Okay. Fourth thing that we could do is deploy the application to a specific web server. There are many applications which support to be getting deployed to like a specific web server. For example, Nginx. Okay, so instead of directly using like Node Alpine, we could utilize Nginx server, which is very small in size, as small as 43 MB. Okay, while this could be a minimal Alpine, it could be around like 240 MB. Okay, so deployment of application should be done like using a web server so that it runs on a very minimal web server's base image. Okay, now these are the things these are the core things that we could do, and let me show you how exactly we are going to implement everything. Okay, and as I say key, this is the project that we are going to implement. It's a very amazing portfolio website given by one of my teammates. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a Linux machine. Let's call this as server, and it will be Ubuntu machine. Version is 24.04 LTS, and size I'm going to create, it's going to be T2 medium. Okay, and this will be the key pair, and this is going to be the security group. Let me just show you the ports that I have actually opened so that you can open the same ports so that you don't face any kind of issues. And these are the ports that I have opened. Okay, maybe you can take a screenshot as well. Okay, so coming back here in storage, I'm giving 25 because we are going to create multiple Docker images. Okay, so this is created, and let us connect to this machine, copy the public IP address, and we can open our MobaXterm. Okay, and let us create new session. Click on session, SSH, public IP address, username, which is in our case going to be Ubuntu, and then we have private key. Here private key we can select from our local system. Okay, now we are connected. Let me just rename this to Aditya or anything, you can put it up. Okay, and yeah. Okay, now we are connected. First command that we are supposed to run always is sudo apt update. Okay, and let's wait for this to get done. Meanwhile, we can get the command for installing Docker, that because we'll be needing it. So I'm going to install the command as install Docker. Okay, and I recommend to install it from official page because you are going to get the latest version, because if you are running it on like lower version, you might face issues. Okay, so I'll run the command to install Docker, and one more command. Here we are basically adding the packages and updating it, and then here we are running the command to install Docker. Okay, and now Docker is getting installed. Also team, you know ki by default when we install Docker on a virtual machine, by default only root user has the permission to run Docker commands. That means if you want to have the permission to run Docker commands, you have to run the command sudo user mod -a capital G, then group name Docker, and then the user. So basically here what I am doing, I am telling that I want to add Ubuntu user to Docker group so that whatever permissions Docker group has, that can be given to Ubuntu user as well. Click enter, and for these changes to be applied, you need to run the command new grp docker. Okay. Now if I run docker pull hello dash world, and now we are able to pull Docker images. Okay. So now let's do one thing. Let us clone this repository, and sorry about that. I have to run the git clone command as well. Sorry about that. Git clone. Okay. So now we have cloned this. We can go inside this. Okay. And we have these things. Okay. So if I show you the package.json file, as of now, we have not specifically defined like which one is the dev dependency, which one is production. So we have not defined that because these things that you are seeing, testing, okay, these are like dev dependencies, because in production we are not doing the testing we have already done in previous environment, right? Now, and this is the Docker file. If I show you the Docker file, initial Docker file, we have this. Okay, here if you see clearly, I'm using the official version of node base image. Okay, and we are running the application in the development server itself, which is npm run start. So if I build this docker build -t, let's call it as app :1 and dot. And this will take quite some time, so let's wait for it. Now Docker image is built, and if we see the size now, Docker images, you can see the size is around 1.55 GB. Okay, and we can run this Docker image also by running the command docker run -d -p. Port we have set up to 3000 on host and 3000 on container, and this is the version. Okay, and we can confirm by docker ps. You can see that container is application is running in the container. Okay, we can even access it. I can access it on browser on port 3000. It should be http. Okay, yeah, and this is the portfolio website that I'm talking about, and you can see it's running fine, right? So now first thing that we did not make any changes, we used the official image of Node.js. It's giving the size 1.55 GB. Let me stop it. Stop, and this is the container ID. Okay. Now, so first thing in order to modify, first thing that we are going to modify in order to decrease the size is going to be, we are going to use a better Docker image. Okay. So first we can try by using Slim. Slim is the base Docker image, which is going to be very small in size. Okay, so let us build that, and this time tag will be 2. This time we are using a Slim image. Okay, and let's see what will be the size. Again, this will take some time because downloading all the dependencies, it takes quite long time. Now the Slim like using the Slim base image, let's see what is the size. We have Docker images, and the size that came out to be, which is 655 MB. Okay, but let's try with Alpine image so that we can see the difference between Slim images and Alpine images, right? I can put the Alpine and save this, and let us build this. Let's provide the name as Alpine so that we don't get confused. And again, this will take quite some time, so yeah, let's wait for this. Now let's see the size of Alpine Docker image. Okay, so on Alpine Docker image, we have the difference of around 50 MB. Okay, as compared to Slim Docker image, right? So there is a still good difference, right? Now from here, what, like how more we can reduce? Okay, so let's see that as well. So now we have come down to 592 MB, right? Now what we can do, now we can utilize multi-stage Docker file, right? So I'm going to create new Docker file and let me show you what changes we have to do in that. Okay. And okay, here first of all we are using two stages are there. First one which we are having the build stage, second one we are at the which is the production stage. Okay, so in first stage we have the base images node alpine, which is fine. Then we are installing the all the dependencies and then we are running the build command. Okay, so here the application that we get built, it will be stored inside app/build folder. Now this is the second stage, which is the actual section of stage where we are going to run the application. Here we have defined this is our work directory. Then we are copying from build. What does this mean? So basically this thing that you see -fn from equal to build, that means we are copying from the build stage. Okay, what we are copying? We are copying the contents of app/build folder, inside which we have the files that is going to run the application, and we are copying it to folder app/build. Okay, then we are using this server. This is a Node.js package, one of the package that we have, which is going to use to serve the static files. So this is kind of separate server which we are going to use to run the application, and this is the command to run the application. Okay, now if I build this and let us call this as multi-stage dash serve, we are using the serve package. Okay, now the size of this Docker image should be coming to somewhere 170 MB or something like that. Okay, but still we can reduce little bit more. How we can do that? So here we are using the serve, right? We are using the serve package from Node.js. Instead of using this, we could use another web server where we can serve the static files. Which server we could use? We could utilize the Nginx server, which is the much smaller in size, somewhere around 43 MB. Okay, so that's what we can utilize. So let's wait for this to complete and then we can go with that. So team, working with multi-stage Docker file and a serve a package for running the application, we are able to reduce the Docker image size to 177 MB. But how we can reduce it more? So now what we have to do? Now we have to separate the dev dependencies and production dependencies. So I'm going to remove the package.json first, and I'm going to create new package.json where the dev dependencies, the production dependencies will be separate. Okay, let me copy this here. Let me explain you as well. These dependencies that you are seeing, these are the production level dependencies. These are mandatory, while these dependencies that you see testing, they are the dev dependencies which we do not need in the production. So now new package.json will be in this format and I can save this. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to create the Docker file, and inside Docker file we are also going to use the Nginx web server. Okay, so let's do that as well. Copy this and put it here. Okay, here what we are doing in the stage one, in the build stage, we are using Node Alpine version, which is one of the smallest. We are building the we are installing the dependencies only of the production. Okay, no dev dependencies we are downloading here. That is the best part. Secondly, in stage 2 we are using Nginx, that also Alpine version. That means the size of this Nginx base image is around 40 to 42 MB, somewhere like that. Okay, and here we are copying the build, whatever application we have built, we are copying inside the Nginx/HTML inside that. Okay, and exposing only we are mentioning that port 80 on which the Nginx will be running. Okay, then we have the cmd command where we are mentioning Nginx -g. -g is basically we are writing so that we can add more configuration, which is going to override the default configuration of Nginx while running. Okay, then we have written daemon off. That means ki Nginx is now going to run on the foreground instead of background, because when we run an application using Docker, we want it to run on the foreground. Okay, now I can save this and I can build this Docker image. Let us, and this will be named as Nginx. Okay, and let's see what happens now. So now it's instead of using serve, it's going to use nginx, and also here we are using the only using the production dependencies. Okay, so we have some error. Let us fix this. So team, the error that we faced is because of React script is not found. So instead of putting what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this React script and put it in the prod ones so that it can be built there. I can paste it here and I will remove it from the div dependencies. Okay, and let us save this and let us build one more time and let's see what happens now. Okay, and this may take some time. So now team, Docker image is built. We can verify Docker images. And here you can see when we define the production and div dependency separately, plus we used multi-stage Docker file, plus we used the Alpine images, plus we used Nginx. Okay. In that scenario, the Docker image came down to 55 MB, which is a huge change. Okay. Which is a huge difference. Now let's run this Docker image, the latest one, 55 MB, so that we can confirm that it is able to run the application properly. So I can run the command docker run -d-p. I want to run it on port 8080 only. Okay, and image name is app and the tag is multi-stage nginx. Okay, so let us run this. Okay, this running now, and we can access it by going on the IP address. So I can put it here and you can see it's running fine. Okay, click on download CV and you'll be able to download the CV as well. Okay, CV is not added, but yeah. Let's talk, then you can go to details like WhatsApp and all. So this application is working fine, and now you can see how we are able to reduce the Docker image size. Okay, all the detail of documentation will be added in the Telegram group, so make sure to check it out.